Fastest 15 minutes on the internet, fastest 15 minutes in social media. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. My name is Judson Powell. Let's jump right into it. All right, I want to talk about transgender. I want to talk about homosexuality and some other things, but I want to do it from a spiritual standpoint and why it is in essence perversion. And we've been seeing a lot of stuff. They've been pushing a homosexual agenda upon us. And I started to touch on it a little bit yesterday. But I guess what I want to talk about, first of all, is the whole thing with Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union and their son slash daughter, Zaya. I guess that's what they're calling her or him now. So my thing is, the first thing is like the kid is 12 years old. Um, and I can, vaguely recall when I was 12 years old, I didn't know what I wanted. so I don't, so my first thing is, how does a kid know at 12 years old that they're transgender? Okay. And my whole thing has always been let a kid be a kid. I'm not saying don't love the kid. I'm not saying anything like that. But what I'm trying to say is that at that age, kids really don't know a whole lot. I have 7 children, and at and they were talking about this a couple of years ago. This is not the first time this came up because I think they were talking about it. I think when the kid was like 10 or 11, and I'm like, at 10 or 11, children don't really have, that I don't know, that cognitive ability to really know. And the other thing is, how do they know what their sexuality is at that young age? I mean, they really don't know what their sexuality is. Your sexuality is starting to develop. It's just starting to develop. Maybe, haven't even reached the age of majority, puberty, none of that kind of stuff. So, so it's kind of strange to me, and it kind of seems like it's being pushed down our throats. But with that aside, I digress. Okay, now we go to the whole thing about, and then we've been seeing what we see transsexuals, transvestites, cross dressers, all this kind of stuff have been called into the public libraries to read to the children. Okay, and so of course, young impressionable minds, we know that old people can be impressed by repetitive things. If I show you something, program you over and over again with something repetitive, of course eventually you'll buy into it. That's Donald Trump's whole deal. All right. Oh, the border wall, Mexicans are crossing into the border, they're invading. We need to use, deadly force to keep people out. Propaganda. That's really all it is. And then we got the whole Billy Porter thing, and every time something comes up, when they were doing their worship of Ptah, which is the Oscars, their worship of Ptah, and he's the one on the red carpet. No black representation except for basically Billy Porter, and then they gave Barack Obama and the people that made the documentary about hair, they gave them Oscars, but yet and still the law the law in the country is that that I can be discriminated against because of my hair. All right, so it's hypocritical. So now let's get into this spiritually. All right, the reason why, once again, we said what the life force, and I talked about this yesterday. The life force is in the blood. The force of life. Life is given through the blood. It also can be taken through the blood. That's how come if you bleed out and the blood stops running through your body, basically you're dead, right? You're dead physically. You're not dead necessarily spiritually, but it also transfers spiritually. So that's why we always talk about these things about like intercourse. When you exchange bodily fluids, all the bodily fluids are basically derivatives of blood. And when you exchange bodily fluids with another human being, basically you exchange spiritual things with them as well. Okay, and so that's how come and once again, since I know the Bible, I use the Bible to explain things. But so, for example, when in the Exodus accounts, when God told the Israelites to go in, kill off people or whatever, but they could keep the women who had not been with a man. Okay, so if they were a virgin, they had not been with a man, they could keep them as their, as their wives or concubines or whatever. Well, there was a reason for that, because every time, and we, people would talk about now, what is it, slut shaming, and and all this kind of stuff, and women are coming out, oh well, we should be able to sleep with who we want to, and blah 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 blah. Blah. Well, the reason why that was included in scripture, rabbinical, and it's a rabbinical thing, is because that every time you sleep with somebody, male or female, you exchange bodily fluids, and you exchange spiritual things as well. Okay, so if they're bad spiritually, they just imparted part of their spirit into you, because once you put and it's a science, and it's also scientific. It's a scientific fact. When a woman sleeps with a man, he ejaculates inside of her. Part of him stays with her forever. And when she has a baby with a man, definitely. So all these people that come behind other people, and have babies with people that have already had babies, because it's alchemy. It is a science. It is a physiological science. It's not, has nothing to do, and so what you're doing is you're exchanging these fluids. These fluids are mixing together. It's just like anything else. It's chemistry. All right, it's chemistry. And so that's why you can't just go out and sleep with a bunch of people. Ain't nobody mad at you for doing you, but the bottom line is that it changes you psychologically, and that's why there are a lot of women who have multiple sex partners, end up becoming bipolar. They end up getting fibroids, different types of cancer, and everything else. So, and the reason why that is because your body is changing because of the chemical makeup. Now, y'all can argue with me and be mad at me or whatever. It is not anything different. And the same thing with homosexuality. The anus is an exit only, as one comedian said. It's an exit only. It's not an entrance. So what you're doing is you are basically you are when in sodomy or whatever, what are you doing? You're going where the basically the residue, the nasty stuff from the body, everything that the excretions, the stuff that's trying to get out of the body. Well, if the body is trying to eliminate it, why would you be going in it? I'm just saying, just be thoughtful about it. If the body is trying to eliminate it, why would you go into it? It just doesn't make sense. All right. And so, but here's the whole spiritual reason behind what the New World Order slash whatever you want to call them, Illuminati, whatever, they want to slow down your process of being able to give birth, and or they want to slow down your population growth, because that's really what it's all about. Even the steps that the president is taking, like I said, with the whole thing with the Mexican wall, or with denying Nigerians the right to be able to come into the country, or the whole shithole country thing. Haitians, all of the black people. Even Puerto Ricans, they're denying that Puerto Ricans are American because they don't want a majority of black children. Okay, because under their law, the one drop rule, if you have one drop of black blood, then you're black, right? We see it with Meghan Markle, and Prince, what's his name, you see the white supremacy and the racism just coming out. Well, the whole thing behind transgender and homosexuality, and then trying to prove that, somehow prove that you're homophobic. Well, a phobia is a fear. That means you fear these people or whatever. Well, most people do not fear homosexuals. Most people don't fear transgender people. If Bruce Jenner walked in the room right now, hey, what's up, man? Because he don't scare me, or anything or anybody else. Billy Porter don't scare me. I'm not afraid of Billy Porter. Never would be, and most people probably wouldn't be. I mean, he's a man in a dress. Why would I be afraid of him? Anyway, I shouldn't laugh. It's messed up. But the point I'm trying to get at is that all of this stuff is population control. And then you have all of these articles talking about population control and how the world is at. And then if you go and you look at the pictures, like Time and Newsweek have published, pictures of like what a person will look like, in 20 or 50 years or whatever, and most of the people in the world will be, melanated people. They'll be black. So that disturbs people who are white supremacists or white nationalists or anything like that. Well, they know that if you're a homosexual, if you're a transgender, you're not going to procreate. They know that, so everything is designed to prevent you from procreating. And universal law, not, I didn't make this up, but there's a universal law, of correspondence and of polarity and of gender. That almost everything that is living on earth has a gender. And the two genders have to meet in order for there to be procreation or reproduction. Nothing reproduces, or nothing, even the scriptures say everything reproduces after its own kind. All right. So you have to understand that if I take away that universal law, or if I mute it, or somehow, get rid of that universal law and say, oh, it's not important, but it is important. Like even plants. Just like all y'all weed smokers, there are male and female marijuana plants, and you can't make marijuana plants without both genders. All right. So there's a universal law of gender, just like there's a universal law of polarity. There's always, and everybody tries to say that this stuff is evil, but it's science, it's scientific. The law of correspondence, as above, so below. Even the Baphomet sign, it's gender. It has both genders. You can't, because they realize that one cannot exist without the other. So it's spiritually, it goes against the Most High. Even the Most High doesn't have a gender, but the Most High respects through its universal laws. The universe respects gender, because you can't, because no matter what even with all of these things that people do in order to procreate, when they are homosexual or whatever, it still requires that both genders be participatory in the procreation. You can't procreate without it. And the same things. And then spiritually, because there was no tactile or touch communication in a lot of these instances, a lot of times, it leaves a spiritual void in the creation. Think about it. I mean, I'm not making this stuff up. I'm just telling y'all what exists and what does not exist. So the agenda, once again, is to prevent, and that's why it's always for predominantly black males, because they realize that if we prevent this, like I said, all of the things that are going on politically right now, they're going on politically, right? Why? So that they prevent basically interracial marriage, interracial procreation. So yeah, we can't have any Arabs, we can't have any blacks, can't have anybody here who is not completely 100% white. And that's the agenda. So just be aware of why that agenda exists, and then be aware why they keep telling you, oh, well, you're a hater, you're a homophobe, you're this, that, and the other thing. Not true. It's just saying, hey, I have a preference, and so do they. And I should have the right to have my preference, just like they're allowed to have the right to have their preference. Nobody is trying to do anybody in. I didn't see anybody go and run on the red carpet and beat Billy Porter up, or yell at him or say anything to him. In fact, he was given one of the highest platforms, in the world. He was on, international television with a dress on. They're not going to put me on international television with with my pants on. Anyway, y'all know how I am. Anyway, so anyway, fastest 15 minutes is up. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I love you all. Hit the love button because we need to love one another. We're all crazy, man.